This is video from Kyiv this morning. Missile strikes on the capital are the most intense they've been since the early weeks of the war. We're now hearing reports of air raid sirens going off again in the capital following earlier strikes. They come after Russia accused Ukraine of damaging a key bridge between Russia and Crimea. A statement from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says the strikes targeted energy infrastructure and people throughout the country. Sarah Lawrynuik is in Kharkiv with more.
What I can tell you is that this morning, nearly every major Ukrainian city was hit with missile attacks. That includes eastern cities like Kharkiv, where I am, and Dnipro, that have been the regular site for attacks, but also western cities that have been the site of calm for months. This includes Lviv, Ternopil, Zhytomyr, and of course the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. There were a couple of things that were noteworthy about these strikes. First of all, normally missile attacks come at night, whereas these ones waited until rush hour when there was the most number of people on the streets. The other thing is that perhaps the targets speak to the motivation for these attacks, as they were largely symbols of Ukrainian identity and strength. This included a pedestrian bridge in Kyiv, which is a significant tourist attraction in non-war times, as well as Shevchenko Park, which is in central Kyiv and named after Taras Shevchenko, who is one of the most iconic figures of the Ukrainian independence movement. The other targets included energy infrastructure and water infrastructure. Power remains off in most major cities right now. And these images that surfaced during these attacks of people fleeing again to the metros, they sparked memories of the early days of the invasion, and quickly, what came after the images of people fleeing to the metros were also videos on social media of the Ukrainian people singing folk tunes in the metro stations to try and encourage morale. And when the all clear was given, music blasted through the streets of Kyiv. Now, this comes after a weekend where we saw explosions on the Kerch Bridge, which is the bridge connecting Crimea to Russia. This was a very symbolic moment, and immediately we saw high-ranking Russian officials come on social media and say that they were looking for revenge. But it wasn't until last night that Russian President Vladimir Putin issued his first statement on Twitter saying, "There is no doubt we are dealing with an act of terror aimed at the destruction of Russia's critical civilian infrastructure," and he directly pointed the finger at Ukraine's special services for the explosion. This morning, he went, in speaking with his Security Council, even further, and he said, quote, "We will make a response commensurate with the attacks on the Russian Federation. Nobody should have any doubt about that." So that is happening. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is on the phone with NATO leaders. And again, these attacks have sparked a call among Ukrainian politicians for NATO to supply more modern air defense systems for Ukrainian cities.
Sarah Lawrynuik for us in Kharkiv.